My grandfather told me a story once. As we sat around a campfire in his backyard in the cool night of the Arizona desert, the horizon was clear and each star twinkled in a purple sky with a full moon hanging low over the mountains. His voice was raspy, the result of a lifetime of smoking cigars and drinking whiskey. The fire danced and shined across his wide dark eyes as he settled into his seat, ready to tell his story.
Way back when I was a boy, about your age,
He began.
I lived outside an Apache reservation with your great-grandfather. He had returned from the war and set about raising horses and cattle on a 100-acre ranch settled between a brambly mountainside with dirt good for growing thorn brush and not much else. One night, my mother was sick, and Pa and I took a trip into town, about 50 miles away, straight through a dry desert, over a washed-out creek, and some old abandoned farmsteads.
The fire sparked, and a log cracked, jolting me out of the story. What's next? I asked.
Settle down, boy. You'll hear soon enough. Pa and I were driving in an old Ford pickup truck. I remember it was dark out, inky and thick, with only the lights of our old truck lighting up the road. I remember too, when the engine began to sputter and the truck slowed to a jerky stop. God damn it, Pa said, guiding the Ford to the side of the road as it coasted to a halt. Stay here, son, as he stepped out into the darkness, shutting the door with a heavy thud. My window was down, and the cool desert air was breezy and felt good on my hot face and neck. Pa was getting water from the back to cool the engine, and that's when I smelled it. Rotten eggs. Strange, I thought, to smell sulfur in the desert. My nose also picked up carrion, like one of them dead bloated cattle that would drop from the heat and lay there until the crows picked enough holes in their hide to cause the whole thing to explode. It stunk, and I gagged. My skin started to tingle too. The back of my neck felt itchy, and my face started to get hot. The wind stopped blowing and hung still and heavy, with the stink filling the cab. My heart started beating, and I felt such a fear in me, in my bones, in my chest, boy, I tell you. I never felt fear like this. Not until Vietnam. Not until I saw men dying around me. I locked the door and reached over my pa's door and saw a shadow bound across the road through both dim beams of light across the partly open, domed hood.
Grandfather paused. He spit a fat wad of tobacco off to his side, and he looked into the darkness. I realized I was holding my breath, and I gasped for air. The night was cool, but I was sweating and clammy. Well, what happened? What about your father? What did you see?
A creature.
He shook his head.
You have to understand. There were legends, older than the rock cairns out in the valley, older still than Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull, than the old Indian chiefs and their shamans. The Apache and Hopi and Cherokee and all them old tribes and First Peoples, they told tales, old stories about dark Indian magic, a deal made with the old spirits of blood sacrifice to gain power. Old power, enough to fight each other and the Spaniards, and later the white men that came for their land and women. They called them.
He paused. Grandfather took a deep breath and bodied forward into his tale, across the fire and the sky, the desert, the creek, the moon, the sun, and the old mountains. He bodied forward.
They called them the Skinwalkers. Shape changes. Old warriors resurrected as skinless men, all sinew and muscle, walking on deer legs with the torso of a man and the head of a coyote. But messed up, boy. Long and malformed snouts. Teeth like a bowie knife, long arms, and standing 7 foot even hunched over. They'd got the old cowboys and white riders. They'd run through bullets and sabers, part the Spanish armor like it was a potato sack. Wily too. They could change their voice to match a person you knew, or might know. Boy, that's what I saw. Big and fast, only for a second. It ran across the road, grey and mottled, muscle flexing under its legs, hooves clomping on the road. Stringy muscle, hunched shoulders, and it turned, looked right into the cab, looked right into my eyes, and I swear, boy, I swear it grinned at me. I sank into my seat in shock, in fear, shaking. I knew death was near. The air was electric. I smelled ozone and brimstone. The air felt like right before the lightning comes and blows a tree to smithereens, charged and full with power. I yelled for my pa, but no words came out, just a dry squeak.
I was shaking as Grandfather told his story. He was still here, so I know he lived, but the supernatural always fascinated me, and even now, I felt the force of his words.
The real power of skinwalkers was trickery. Sure, they could change their voices, but also their skin. That's why the gods took their hide, so they could take others. Not for long, the legends say. Maybe an hour before the soul of the skin they wore would come looking for their mortal shell, before going to whatever hell awaited them. Though I think that getting skinned alive was hell enough. A minute passed in what felt like a lifetime. 1 second in 1,000 years. My father's door opened, and I jerked my head to the left, putting my fists up to fend off an attack. "Son, it's me," my father said. Before climbing into the cab, he grasped the steering wheel and pulled himself in awkwardly, jerking himself into the seat. I cringed in the corner. I looked at him. I looked hard, boy. Your grandfather was a good man. Treated me and my ma right. He fought the Nazis and saw the worst of man in Poland when he freed all them camps. And now, I was taking his measure. Is this my father? Do I make a run or do I die? Is it him or not? Let's go get that medicine for your ma. As he pulled the truck into gear and pulled it out onto the road, and our trip resumed. I guess it was him after all.
But how did you know? Was it because he said something about your mom?
No, boy. I knew, because out the window, out the corner of my eye, I saw that beast running 50 miles an hour right next to the car, looking at me with them yellow eyes and grinning mouth. I looked and saw it, hunched and angry, running next to us, boy. My pa kept his eyes on the road, locked straight forward. "Son," he said, "don't look at it. Don't look at it." That's how I knew, boy.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode. I'd like to give a shout out and a huge thank you to Stories, Fables, and Ghostly Tales for jumping in on this with me. He did an absolute beast of a narration, and you guys should definitely go check out his channel and subscribe. A link can be found in the description below. As for me, more collaborations and stories are on the horizon. I also just want to note, a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed. The support you have all given, and how quickly this channel is growing. I'm honestly at a loss of words, so thank you. Last but not least, always remember, I am the words that keep the birds humming. Join me